July of 13, we brought in a new elections director. And so we got a new guy running the elections division. And he is a consummate professional. I mean, this guy is really good. And he's so good that some people at City Hall tried to get him fired about a year ago on some pretty outrageous stuff. But what they had said was that there were some voting inaccuracies and discrepancies in 2 or 3 precincts in Southwest, and that it was deliberate. Well, there was some stuff going on in Alpharetta and some other places, but it was 1%. The whole thing amounted to less than 1%. So Fulton County said, we're not hiring him. We're not doing it in Atlanta because he's their guy. So he was still there, and so I ran for my seat in 13 because I knew what had happened to me in 09, and there were 4 things that had happened. And if y'all are interested in hearing those, I'll give you the story of what they did. So I knew I would be deep enough in the streets to clean up the elections process. And so there were the 4 things that happened. The first one I didn't know about until 13. I didn't figure this out. But the guy that I told you that was a guru from Forsyth County who came in and oversaw the elections, he called me up in July and he said, Mary, all of us elections professionals never believe elections are stolen. We believe they're messy, we believe they're problematic, but we never believe they're stolen. He said, but I've now known you for 6 months. I decided to go back and look at your returns. He said, you didn't lose your election night. You lost your election the first week of early voting. There were too many votes for the other guy the first week that didn't translate into weeks 2 and 3 and the day of the election. He says, statistically, it doesn't happen that way. So I went, that's really good information. Because we had known that people were bussing people in, but I had always assumed they were legitimate voters. I had no idea that they were bussing people in that weren't legitimate voters. But armed with that information, that was really important. So 4 things had happened. One is they bust people in. So in 13, we had early voting poll watchers. And everybody does poll watching the day of the election. But we started day 1, every single polling place, early voting polling place. I had 2 guys at each place, girls and guys, at each place in Mary Norwood t-shirts, 150 feet from the building, which is the law. And they were in t-shirts with cameras. So they had their cell phones with cameras. And I would go out and do selfies with them. And so not only were my people out there, but I was showing up. Now it is a lot harder to drive a van with 6 felon, guys that are going to commit felonies by voting illegally if somebody's watching. So what we heard was that the political machine here wanted 15,000 early voters. They only got 5,000.
Wow.
I won by 2,500 votes. Then 2 other things happened, which were really important. And in both of these, the new guy fixed, and I had no idea. So, I knew he was great after I saw this. What we had heard happened in 09, and we could not prove. Don't record this, guys. This is my secret weapon, because I know this stuff and people don't know that I know this stuff. So it's never gone public. So in 09, what we heard happened was at 7:30 at night, because the poll workers until Rick came in would go to the same precincts for year after year after year after year. So you had everybody kind of, with their candidate and their preference and whatever. So when you've got your voter list sitting there, you know everybody on your list who's supposed to come through and vote that day. You know how old they are, you know what race they are, you know what sex they are. So if you know that your little ladies who are over 80 years old don't drive after dark, and it's now 7:30 on December 1st, you can just write out voter certificates for them. Because those voter certificates don't have a signature match, and they don't have any embossing or anything to say that that certificate is what actually was there that night. There's nothing to say that that's the same white piece of paper. Now, what the poll workers are supposed to do is to check a little box and say they saw a photo ID. But what if they didn't check? Well, they hadn't committed fraud. They just forgot to check. So we went into the voting data center the day after the 2009 election, and the law partner of the current mayor got us thrown out on a bogus ethics charge that he filed with the state ethics commission, and they closed us down, which was stupid. They said we were a PAC. We couldn't be a PAC because the voting was already over. I mean, you know, it was just crazy. It was crazy stuff. So anyway, what happened with the new guy coming into Fulton County is he put scanners in the precincts. So now when you give your photo ID, they scan it. Yeah. So you couldn't have 50 that showed up that just people forgot to check. Then the other piece that Rick saw was they withheld precincts until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, because then they would know the number to beat. They would know how many, you know, come in from other parts of the city. So when Rick reported out the numbers in 13, again when I ran, you looked at the screen and you didn't just have the numbers, you had the percentage of turnout. So how could you have 7A and 7B and 7D with 15 to 18% turnout, but 7C at 11 o'clock at night reports 35% turnout? People would be looking for it all day long. So they couldn't fluff up. But if you didn't know that 213 voters for this person to 98 for that person was 35%, you would never know. So the percentage of turnout meant they couldn't do the late night fluffing. And then the last thing they did was they got the housing authorities list, the confidential list, that when people left the housing projects, they went out and got an apartment and a voucher traveled with them. So the housing authority needs to know that you live in Spring Valley Apartments, Unit B2, because they need to send the money for your voucher to you in that apartment unit. So they have exactly where you live so that you can get that money and not still be in the projects. So the loyal opposition got that list, which is proprietary and you're not supposed to get it. Now, so what they did is they went out to those apartments and to these people that were still registered at the old housing projects, even though they'd been leveled, even though there was nobody there. There were voters that were still on the rolls from these various streets. And so the morning, so what happened was they knocked on the door Saturday night and said, Jimmy Johnson, you're out here in Mableton and we are glad for you and you're getting money from the government. But you're still registered on Henry Thomas Drive, and we just need you to come back in on Tuesday and vote for Henry Thomas Drive. Now, so we knew that had happened, and there were not enough from the projects to have turned the election. There were only about 115 that we could locate. But there were other people who had left houses that were abandoned, but they were still on the voter rolls. They just weren't in the projects, because you had so much mortgage fraud that went through the city in 07 and 08 that there were lots of abandoned places where people were still on the rolls. So because Fulton County has a tax digest and they know which houses are having taxes paid and they have the voter rolls, they have the ability to do a match and figure out where they could put fraudulent voters in. So what happened in 13 when I was on the Board of Elections is a great African-American preacher was on the board with me, and I explained to him what had happened in 09, and I said, the thugs didn't commit the felony. The person who committed the felony was the nice person sitting there in his apartment who was threatened and coerced to go back in and vote across county lines. So that Dr. Durley and the new executive director of the elections director got on radio and in print in 13 and said to members of the African American community, don't let anybody do this to you because you will be committing a felony and you will lose your right to vote. So that was a take it to the streets that helped slow that down. So those were the 4 things that happened. And that's my prelude. That isn't even so far.
Prelude, guys.